Hey there viewers. Now, normally I don't like making videos like this discussing the ongoing issues of my channel, however, seeing as how this one's been going on a lot longer than I expected it to, I figured it best to update everyone on exactly what is going on. Now, back in April, I began having problems with the left analog stick on my PS3 controller. How every so often, after continued use of pressing forward, it would get off-centered and I would occasionally creep forward, which became a major issue on smaller platforms where you would end up just walking off. Not really something you want in platformers, which I do a lot of. I even made mention of this during the charity marathon later that month. Now eventually I took the controller apart and I began to fiddle around with the left analog stick in order to recenter it, and that kind of worked, for the most part, temporarily. Then earlier this month the problem arose again, even worse than before, so much so that it wasn't just continued use that made the left analog stick uncentered. It became uncentered all the time, where standing still was a nigh impossibility. So yet again I took it upon myself to take the controller apart in hopes that maybe I could fix it for a second time by fiddling around with the left analog stick. And after a few days of attempting to do so, I made a grave mistake by removing the piece of metal in the left analog stick, thereby destroying all movement altogether. So with no remedy in sight, this is what became of the PS3 controller. Completely gutted. So I had to go online and get a replacement controller. However, seeing as how I'm a bit of a cheap gamer, I was not willing to drop $60 for a new one. So I went on to eBay, yeah, my first mistake, in order to get a third-party PS3 controller, because odds are if you're looking for an official Sony brand controller on eBay for cheap, you're going to end up with a counterfeit one. So I didn't want an official Sony brand PS3 controller, I wanted a third-party one. That way I could get it cheap and not have to worry about the sellers trying to pass it off as an official Sony brand. Well, I ended up finding one for $20 by a seller who had over 1,000 sales and 100% rating, so I figured I was safe to buy from him. Turns out that was not the case. I ended up getting the controller, and lo and behold, he tried to hand me off a Sony brand counterfeit controller, claiming it to be a third party. Newsflash, third party does not mean counterfeit. I did not want a phony Sony controller. Third parties do not put official labeling on their merchandise and try and pass it off as the real deal. Now, not all of the counterfeit ones are bad. Some of them are actually decent in their reliability. Their biggest issues being fonts wrong, colors off, or just that their edges are not smooth. However, those were not the issues of my phony Sony controller. Personally, I have 4 issues with this controller. Number 1 being R1. It is very loose, more loose than an R1 should be. Also with the R1 button, it does not work every time you press it. As you can see, Colmagrath is not firing despite the fact that I am pressing R1. You have to press it down in the middle for it to work. The sides just do not work. 2. The other buttons are also not as sensitive as they should be. Pressing X, Colmagrath does not jump every time. You have to press fairly hard for him to jump. Issue number 3 being the analog sticks. The first quarter of it does absolutely nothing, so if you want to inch yourself forward, that is not going to work. This is also an issue for precision shot. If you want to get a precision shot, that is not going to work, because you cannot inch yourself forward. There's only medium and hard movement. There is no light. And then finally, the last issue with this controller is that if you try to turn off your PS3 while it is plugged in via the USB cable, and I'll actually do it this way for you, I am not going to press a single button. It is turning itself off. It is still flashing. It continues to flash. I am not pressing any buttons. Give it a minute to wait. Maybe a little bit longer. Holy hell, that actually worked. Well, normally the past few times that I've done that, it has automatically turned the PS3 back on. Why it actually wanted to work this time, I don't know, but normally, the past few times I've done it, it has automatically turned the console back on. So what exactly this means is that until I can get another replacement PS3 controller, I am not going to be able to continue any of my PS3 or PS2 games. Now I know a lot of you are saying, Well, why should a PS2 game have any effect on a broken PS3 controller? I play all of my PS2 games on my backwards compatible PS3, so I still need a PS3 controller for those games. So more than likely, until further notice, I'm going to just be doing Xbox 360 or Wii games. I have not decided yet. So I just thought I'd let everyone know exactly what is going on, and apologies to all those who've been patiently waiting for the continuation of a lot of my LPs. We're just gonna have to take a detour for now, and until next time, again, sorry and adios.